Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Devin Sears. I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Mark Barrera. And today we are talking about SEO made simple, getting your website found online. It's the beginning of a new year. Well, we're towards the end of January, but we're still the forefront of the year. And so a lot of people have their websites on their mind. And if you're thinking about your website and you're trying to get traffic to it, obviously SEO is a huge question. How do you make sure that people are getting to your website? How do you make sure that your site is being found on the Google search results page or any other um, results page? So before we jump into the content, as I mentioned, we are joined by Mark Barrera. He is our VP of SEO Channel Management. As always, I'm your host, Devin Sears. I'm our Senior Field Marketing Manager here at Bluehost. And we're super excited to have Mark here today. He's got a lot of experience, and I can't think of anyone better to help us learn more about how to optimize and how to understand SEO or search engine optimization. Before we jump into content, though, there's a few housekeeping things we want to cover. The first one, if you can hear us, tell us where you're tuning in from. The second is look for the chat box, as you can see in this screen here. That should be on the top right of your browser. From there, you're welcome to drop any notes or questions or thoughts that you have as the webinar progresses. Next to that chat box, you should see a Q&A tab. If you have questions, we ask that you drop them in there. I will be trying to answer as many as I possibly can as this webinar goes on. If there are questions that I don't know the answer to or that I think the entire group will benefit from, I'll hold a handful of those until the end of the webinar, and we'll have a Q&A round with Mark and I. The question that we always get is, will this be recorded and will we be sending out a recording? And the answer is yes. We will try to send out a recording of this to everyone that has registered 24 to 48 hours after the presentation concludes. The other thing with the Q&A, if you do have a question, if you can ask in there, that allows us to give a threaded response. So if it is a question that requires a little bit of a back and forth, the Q&A tab is a lot easier for us to manage on that. If you're tuning in from a mobile device, you might need to unmute the stream. Clicking anywhere on the screen should allow you to unmute that. And if you have any issues with hearing us, drop a note in the comments or try just exiting the webinar and rejoining. That fixes 90% of the issues that we found. So enough of the housekeeping. As I mentioned before, today we're talking about SEO, because if your website isn't on the first page of Google, does it even exist? It's a valid question, I feel like. And I think, especially in today's culture where we want immediate results, we are not often going to page 2, 3, and 4 of Google to look for the answer to our question. If we can't find it on page 1, we go back and we rephrase our question. So today, we're going to be covering a lot of information about SEO, and I'll turn the time over to Mark in just a second. But just as a brief overview, we're going to be talking about setting up your WordPress site for SEO success. We're specifically want to talk about how WordPress can be involved in that. We're going to talk about keyword research and content optimization, the technical SEO essentials. We're going to talk about some leveraging some structured data, and we're going to talk about SEO specifically with WordPress, building quality backlinks, monitoring and measuring SEO performances, and staying updated with SEO trends. So there's a lot that we're going to try to pack into this. If you do have specific SEO questions, please take a moment and drop them into the chat or the Q&A tab now, and we will do our very best to make sure that your specific SEO question is responded to during this webinar. So without further ado, I'll be turning the time over to Mark. I will be dropping off camera so that I can be focusing on the chat while Mark is teaching us about SEO. So Mark, please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Devin. Very excited to be here and present, and excited about the content we have for you today. So as called out, first part of this is just kind of setting up your WordPress site for success. And I want to start off with the basics and outline what is SEO. I think everyone here knows, but just as a reminder, when people search, they typically go to Google. There's, of course, other search engines. The process of SEO is just optimizing your visibility for your business, your website, in those search engines. And your goal is to rank for different things. And there's kind of two buckets of ways you can rank. You rank for your brand, someone looking for your business, but also people looking for what we call the non-branded keywords. So the things that are related to what your business solves or the products you offer, without them understanding, that your business exists. So you want to rank for all of those to reach a new audience and drive them back to your website. And the beautiful thing about SEO is that it's free. It's not like paid ads where you pay per click, and you have to invest a lot of dollars. The results you get from here, yes, you have to invest some of your time and energy, which costs money. But beyond that, again, each click you're not paying like you would on the paid side. It also, just allows you to reach that audience that again is looking for your services, your website, and what it is you're able to provide for them. So you're able to answer those queries they're looking for and drive them back to your site and show them how it is that you serve their needs. And it provides that brand visibility that you're looking for. The more keywords you rank for, the more often they're going to see you, and the more they're going to think of you as the solution to your problem. And then once that traffic gets to your site, it's going to lead to them converting, buying from you, submitting leads, whatever the case may be for your business, and ultimately driving revenue, which is the goal here. So SEO is one of the many channels online to drive that traffic, but again, one of the largest, and we'll talk about that as well. So what are those numbers? Google search, everyone's doing it. It's happening all the time. But as we look at SEO, that number one result on Google gets the majority of all the clicks. So as you look at a search result page, the click-through rate is going to decline as you go down the page. So whoever's on top is going to get the vast majority. The next one's going to probably get half as much. The next one's going to get half as much, so on and so forth. But ultimately, as Devin alluded to, if you're not on page one, you're really not visible at all. It's like buying a billboard and putting it backwards. Like, what's the use if no one's going to see it and learn about you? So again, that number one result is where the majority of all the traffic is. So whoever ranks in that number one spot for what someone's searching for is going to drive the majority of the traffic. But then the position 2 and position 3 also matter a lot. And so you add all of that up, you're looking at about half of the total clicks going to those top 3 results. And a ranking for position 1 is 12 times more likely to get clicked than that number 10 spot on the same page. And basically, no one navigates that second page of results. There's a joke in the SEO world where you hide a body in Google, it's on the second page of results. No one will find it. So again, the goal is to try to rank, but continue to rank better through some of the techniques we'll talk about in this presentation, because again, the higher up you are, the more you're going to see from a click standpoint. So what's one of the first steps you need to do when building that WordPress website to maximize your SEO visibility? You need to pick a theme that is going to be friendly on the SEO side. So what does that mean? You need a theme that is designed for speed, mobile responsiveness, and clean code. So there's a lot of these out there, examples of these: Astra, GeneratePress, OceanWP, and many others. But the key here is that you want a theme that allows your site to be delivered very quickly. One of the things that both the users and search engines want is a quick experience, so that on the search engine side, they're able to crawl it, generate that site, understand it very quickly. But more so for the users is why it matters. The quicker you can serve a website to a user, the quicker they can get that impression of you and then convert. The longer it takes to load, the more likely they are to bounce or not interact with your site and keep clicking to more pages. So Google, prioritizes that user signal in its ranking mechanism to say, hey, if a site is very quick and clean for users, we're going to serve that more to users. So that's why that speed, that clean code, and kind of that SEO friendliness matters in a theme. And then the other piece of that being the mobile responsiveness. So Google is in what we call a mobile first world. So as they kind of crawl the web and discover websites, they're rendering it through a mobile browser. So that's the view that they're assuming most people will see, because the majority of traffic now is on mobile. So you've got to design with that mobile first mentality, no matter what type of business you are, making sure that everything you do and build for is for that mobile experience. It's definitely important to look at the desktop as well and understand that it's performing in both, but just know that we're in a mobile first era as it comes to search engines and how things rank there. With these themes, there's also the ability to kind of look for built-in schema and other aspects of SEO. But again, the takeaway here is make sure the theme you're working with is going to be SEO friendly, not bloated, great for users and great for speed. So the other benefit of WordPress as your platform for your website is that there's a lot of plugins that will make everything easier. You don't have to worry about coding things or figuring out how to optimize the SEO yourself. There's great tools out there that will do that for you. So there's kind of a different bucket of what they'll do and how they'll help you, but ultimately there's probably just a couple of these you'll need to really drive success. So Yoast SEO is one that I've used forever, as long as it's been around, and it really simplifies the SEO process from meta tags, sitemaps, internal linking, image optimization, redirect management, social media previews, all different types of things that matter on the SEO side. Tools like Yoast or All-in-One SEO do that for you. So you don't really have to think about it. It becomes a part of the workflow within WordPress to give you those benefits you need on the SEO side. Some of the things that Yoast may not cover are speed types of improvements. And so there are tools like Smush or WP Rocket or others that are focused just on the optimization from a performance standpoint that are really great. There's some other things on the SEO side. You'll probably need Google Analytics or Monster Insights, another analytics tool, to make sure you're watching the data of what's happening with your users. But again, a lot of the SEO essentials are really going to come from something like Yoast. So highly recommend that. But then some of these others are going to be pieces to just kind of extend where Yoast can't. So after you've kind of got that set up, you're building your site and you've got to think about, okay, what is the structure of my site? A lot of times people start with just a single page website that at a high level talks about their business and lays out what they do. But in reality, from a search perspective, you want multiple landing pages. You need a site that's deeper than just that one page, because essentially each page in your website is a opportunity to rank for a different set of keywords. So in order to kind of figure out, well, what's going to be best and how do I lay out this site structure, you've got to do that keyword research, and we'll talk about how to do that, to then guide what are the pages I need and then how do I organize it. What are the menus? What are the categories? How do I link to the different pages? How can I make sure that users see that information? And so we talk about breadcrumbs here, which is a feature again baked into Yoast that allows the optimization of that menu structure, both for search engines as well as the users. But then once you've got a large site, there's also the need to submit that content to a search engine, which is what an XML sitemap does. It says, here are all my pages. Hey, Google, go crawl them. Make sure you're indexing all of these, and these are available to rank. So again, that's another great feature that ties into something like Yoast. So once again you've kind of figured out what are the pages you need, you want to lay that out in a structure that says, okay, these pages are grouped together. They're about this certain product. They're targeting this. These type of keywords. You've got these pages, targeting this. Maybe you want a blog that allows you to kind of talk about things ongoing. But again, get that laid out, set that structure, create your menus, and then a lot of these tools are going to help to optimize that for you as you build that out. So I referenced the keyword research and kind of content at a high level. Now we're going to dive in and just get a little bit more granular as to how you go through that process. So keyword research, as I've already alluded to, is kind of that foundation to understand what are people searching for, what are the problems they're having, what are the products they're seeking, the services, the solutions they need, so that as they type those into Google, you're the one that's going to rank for them. So in order to do that, your content has to map to what those needs are that are identified in that keyword research. So there's a lot of great tools out there to do this. Some free ones such as Google Keyword Planner or Google Trends, and then some kind of freemium tools that have some free offerings, but also lead into paid offerings as well. Examples of those would be Ubersuggest, SEMrush, Ahrefs, But also ChatGPT is a new one that makes it a lot easier for people to kind of get to some of these insights as well. So what I suggest doing is going into these tools and just typing in the things you think people are looking for to find your business, and they'll suggest related terms and give you a lot of insight as to the search volume, which are more popular, which are less popular, to help you kind of get this whole world of understanding the keywords that you need to target and therefore which pages you need to build. Um, the keywords that have higher search volume are definitely going to be more competitive. And the reason I bring that up and why it's important to kind of keep that in mind is competitive are going to be harder for a brand new website to rank for straight out of the gate. So, I'd suggest kind of looking at the terms that are maybe what we call long tail, maybe less search volume, more queries or keywords within that search phrase, but are still very tied to what your business is. Start with the easier opportunities and work your way up. As you get more content, you'll become more relevant and you'll be able to start to rank for those harder, kind of more competitive terms. You also want to look at the location specific keywords. So if you're a business serving a certain geographic area, or maybe you serve multiple areas, your content needs to match with that. So, if I offer plumbing services in Dallas and Austin and San Antonio or whatever the case may be, any pages that reflect that as well, so that people searching for those services in those areas can find that. Or if you're more global, which countries are you able to serve? And again, that content is going to be specific to those areas, and you need to make sure you identify that as well. And then another thing is using these tools to kind of look at your competitors. Yeah, and a simple way to do that is go to their websites, figure out what it is that they're targeting, and you can look at their pages and their title tags for those pages, which is the piece that you see in the browser bar at the top that's kind of telling you what the page is about. Look at their keywords, understanding what they're targeting. How many different pages do they have? What are the nature of those and the keywords they're going after? And then taking those and putting those back into these tools that we're highlighting here as a mechanism to then discover more opportunities for types of content you may need. Because there's a lot of insights, you can get from those competitors. You don't always have to rewrite the book. A lot of times they've done that research, so why not start from there to kind of understand where it is that you should focus. Another thing called out here is high converting terms. So as you think about search queries, they're going to be a lot different in kind of the nature of what the intent is behind that. So if someone searches for your brand, XYZ business, as an example, they are specifically looking for you. So they already know about you. They may know about your services and products. Probably a higher likelihood for them to convert into business for you because they're aware of who you are and what you provide. And then as you look at the non-branded side, there's the marketing funnel, the top of funnel, things that are very informational, like how do I do XYZ? So if you're a plumber, like how do I change the nozzle on my faucet bib or whatever it may be. That is someone looking for information and maybe not as likely to use your services. But as they then kind of go through that process, they may see, okay, this is hard for me. I need someone to actually do it for me. So who are the plumbers in my area? So plumbers near my address or things like that are going to have a higher intent to convert. And then even something more specific like plumber who handles septic in my area, of a very specific problem. Um, those are the keywords that are going to convert even better. So you want to think about what is the intent behind those keywords and the likelihood to convert into customers for you. Prioritize those accordingly based on those insights. So you've got all of that keyword research, you've kind of built that site structure, and you've really got to write the content that's going to live within that. What do? I think at the highest level, you've got to make sure that you're really just writing good content that brings value to the users. Um, you know, Sometimes people think of SEO and they've got to write a certain number of keywords or say things a certain way to satisfy the search engines. But at the end of the day, it's really about making sure you're providing the value to the users, giving them the answers and the information they need to understand how you're there to help them, and doing that very well. And so if you do that, you're really going to win. So what does that mean? Write content that's going to engage. There's got to be something psychologically that connects with them that says, yeah, they're right. They do understand my problem or what it is I'm looking for, and it seems like they can help me to understand that. And you inform. You're really clear on what the steps in solving a problem are, or the things they should be aware of, or how it is that you're differentiated in solving this for them. To again, kind of really help them click and understand that, okay, yep, they know what they're doing and they can solve my problem through their product or their service or whatever it is you may be selling. And you've got to be original. You can't just go out and say the same thing as someone else. Otherwise, they click on that other result. Why are they going to choose you over someone else with the same content? And again, what is it that you can do to provide value to them in what you're doing? And as we talked about, making sure that content aligns with their user intent. If they're looking to understand how to do something, make sure you tell them how to do that. Try to tell them how to fix whatever the problem is. Um, but again, some people won't be able to solve that on their own, and will need you. So that's where after you tell them, here's how to solve the problem, still need help, come talk to us. This is where we can help you out, or this product's actually going to make that thing easier for you. So that you can really match, the intent of what they're looking for within how your business can sell your solution to them. And make sure and make it engaging. So visuals, images are great to really illustrate the problem, but also video. We see that more and more these days. You know, record yourself or your customers, solving the problems using your products, whatever it may be, to really make that connection with someone like, oh, yep, that is exactly what I'm going through. I see how it's solved. That video makes a lot of sense. I'm going to go ahead and use this company or use this product to help solve my problem. So any of those things that can really have that emotional attachment, which we do see from great visuals, such as rich media like video, is really going to enhance that content. So the more effort you can put into good content, the better it's going to be overall for all of your SEO results. So you've got all the content, and that's what we call the on-page um, portion of this. So you've got your site structure. There's some more things you need to do. As you create these pages, you've got to optimize your URLs to make sure they kind of align with that keyword research, so that you're using those keywords in the URL structure, but also these things like titles and headings and meta descriptions within that content. Um, and again, if you're not familiar kind of with what these terms are, that's where something like Yoast really comes in and makes it helpful. They'll guide you through that process and say, here's where you write your title. They'll analyze how long it is. Are you using the right keywords, and allow you to write that meta description and kind of see what it's going to look like to a user in the search engine through their um, preview tool that they have built in. So again, a lot of that are things you don't have to necessarily understand, but things that will be valuable to have as part of your on-page optimization going forward to make sure you're maximizing the SEO value. Then there's the off-page considerations. So what does that mean? In order to rank well in search, you've got to have others talking about you as well. So again, back to that kind of billboard analogy I had earlier, you can build a billboard, but if you turn it backwards, who's going to see it? Same with a website. You can put it out there for Google, but if people aren't really talking about it, Google's not going to find it as well, or kind of see it. So what's needed there are links from other websites, people talking about you on social, and what we consider off-page factors. So how can you get the visibility outside of your website of what you're offering, so that people can discover that? So you could be a member of your Better Business Bureau and have a link from that, or drive traffic from social media, or have others in your industry, or related industries talk about you as well. So there's a lot of ways to do this, and we'll get kind of more into the nitty gritty on that as well. But key thing there for that off-page consideration is, again, it's content and relationships that are really going to drive the value for you there. So let's talk about the technical side for a little bit. We've gotten into little pieces of it, but again, let's get nitty gritty here. So I already talked about the need for site speed and kind of the theme selection and other things, but you're going to want to continue to optimize what you can do to improve your site speed for users. So there's great tools out there like WP Rocket or Lightspeed, and what they allow you to do is cache your content, meaning versus have WordPress build it each time for the user as they request it. They kind of pre-build that so that they can deliver it out as quickly as possible when that request is made. So there's no kind of WordPress backend processes happening. That page is delivered essentially real time, which really is, again, the goal, that there's no lag in delivering that. Part of site speed as well is optimizing for your images. You don't want files, videos, things to be too large. The larger any of those are, the longer it takes for your site to load. So you want to make sure that you're really thinking about how to optimize the size of those. And you don't want to have to do that or have your designer do it. So there's great tools like Smush. We use that here at Bluehost ourselves. And essentially, anytime you upload an image, it will automatically convert that to the smallest high fidelity version of that image, as well as in a web friendly format, so you don't have to worry about all of those details. You don't have to be a technical person to do that. So those are really great for optimizing your media that we talked about that should be included in your content, such as images. So definitely recommend plugins like that to do that. But also, it's important to choose fast and reliable hosting, because again, different hosts are going to have different response times and be able to deliver that content out. So if that cache is there, but you've got a host that can't deliver it as quickly as you need, then that's going to kind of play into your site speed and negatively impact your SEO. So you definitely want to make sure you're looking at choosing a fast and reliable host. Then there's a lot of other things that you don't necessarily have to know how to do, but matter in what you're doing on the technical side. So the last bullet here you see is leveraging Google Search Console insights. In there, they will talk about Core Web Vitals and some of the other site speed metrics, and they'll have recommendations for how to fix site speed issues. And typically what we see are things like minifying your CSS, your JavaScript, HTML, and a lot of other technical things that you can do to the code to improve that site speed. But again, you don't have to necessarily know that stuff. As long as you've got tools to do that, and again, Smush is one of those options that will do this automatically for you, and you turn that on, you shouldn't have to worry about these things, and you can kind of monitor your performance and see, is it working or not as you look in Google Search Console at those insights. And so the other things being lazy loading, as well as some other speed initiatives that Google will call out, all of that can be done within these plugins such as Smush or others. And then there's another option for using a content delivery network on top of your hosting provider. That, again, it just really extends the reach of that content to be served as close to a user as possible. So back to having that cached content kind of created for speed, you're delivering that on a content delivery network from the closest node, to where that person is that's trying to consume your content. So it's just another lever you have in your arsenal to make sure you're optimizing that speed. And a lot of those CDNs can be built into some of these tools like Smush to make it easy to integrate those as well, so you don't have to be a technical expert to do that. So mobile optimization, we talked about this, but just really want to emphasize how this is the de facto world we live in. Google crawls from a mobile perspective, but also most users are searching on mobile. So make sure you're always looking at your website on mobile, make sure everything works there. And again, that theme selection is very important to make sure that it is mobile friendly. You don't want things to look wonky or jumping around the page on the mobile side. And there is a tool from Google that allows you to kind of check that friendliness. So within your Google Search Console, they have a bunch of tools like their mobile friendly tool that will show you kind of how do they see it and how would a user see it aside from what you do. So why that's important is different browsers, different regions, a lot of different reasons that it might look different for different people. And so using that tool just helps to verify that what you're seeing is what Google as well as your users are seeing. So highly recommend that. Another piece of how you deliver this content, SSL, which is site security, is very important. Within browsers like Chrome now, if you're not using SSL, meaning your site doesn't load on an HTTPS protocol, it's going to cause an alert there in the browser saying, warning, this site is not secure. People can still visit it, but again, it's kind of the de facto mode when it comes to delivering a site that every site should be enabling their SSL so that they can serve their site over HTTPS. And the reason for that is that every user can feel safe knowing that their session is secure. There's not going to be any hijacking or malware or other things kind of intercepted and injected along that process. So making sure that you have your SSL and are delivering your site over HTTPS by default is very important because again, not just will it affect your SEO results, which is something that Google does look at. They want you to be on HTTPS, but also your users, because if you don't have that, they may get those warnings in the browsers. They may not be able to get to your site as easily because it is being flagged as not secure. So definitely a piece that you want to make sure to enable with your site when you are building it. So what are some other technical issues we run into and how do you fix those? So canonical tags, what does this mean? This is representing where you may have two versions of a page and you want to make sure that really you're telling a search engine it's only one. If you've got a printer-friendly version or a mobile and a desktop version, these tags just allow that to kind of, from a technical standpoint, be solved so that Google realizes it's one page. And again, tools like Yoast and others have some of these canonical features built in. So again, it's not something you have to worry about as long as you're leveraging those tools. And we referenced Google Search Console earlier from a site speed perspective, but there's a lot of other errors that can be seen in there. Like, are they crawling your site? Are they finding that pages may be 404 and don't load when they should? So again, really encourage everyone to register site in Google Search Console and understand what those errors might be that Google's encountering, as well as the site speed issues we talked about, and other things that are really going to make sure you're presenting the best version of your site to Google. The way I like to compare it is, if your house isn't built on a good foundation, it can all kind of crack and crumble down. So that's the same thing here. We really want that technical foundation to be as clean as possible, just so that it's easy for Google as well as the users to kind of find and engage with all of your content. And so Google Search Console is a great place to find those errors. So that you can do things like optimizing your URL structure, better internal linking. In Google Search Console, it allows you to understand or submit your sitemap to them. So again, to tell Google what pages you have on your site. And again, that's a feature of something like Yoast that allows you to just automatically do that and then go put that link inside of Search Console. Or if there's pages on your website you don't want them to crawl, maybe you've got certain paid landing pages or affiliate landing pages you don't want to be indexed and being served from Google, you can leverage your robots.txt to block those. So again, a lot of different things you can do on the technical side, and Google Search Console is a great place to kind of see what those are, but also manage them going forward. So what is structured data? This is a way of kind of telling search engines you have specific types of content or features, and you really want them to leverage that in understanding your content. So what that does, and I'll give an example of job search. If you have job listings on your site, you can structure the schema of that to say, this is the name of the job, this is the pay of the job, this is the location, so that as someone does a search for that job, that feature within Google kind of gets displayed in a different way, and it's real easy for them to pull that out from your page and show that to users in the search results. So again, it gives you that better visibility in search results. And when we see those kind of unique, rich snippets that get shown in a search result based on some of this underlying schema, we'll show some examples of what that looks like in just a second. But you're probably going, okay, well, how do I do this? That sounds complicated. Again, leverage the tools like Yoast, or Google has some of their own markup helper tools, so that you can identify what are the schema markups that are available. So things like reviews, job postings, FAQs, there's a whole list of those that you can do. Events, so if you're hosting an event, you can mark that up for better visibility. But again, get an understanding of what those types are that would apply to your business, and then leverage a tool like Yoast to make sure you're implementing that where that content exists on your site. And then back in Search Console, you can test that to make sure that it's showing the way you would expect it to, and Google's able to read and understand that schema markup that you're providing. Some other things, examples of schema or authorship, who wrote this, so they can maybe show that person in the search results. Or if you've got products with images, and shopping results are a common place that Google really leverages schema markup. So if you're selling products, this is definitely something you have to leverage and understand. But again, the tools will help you do that to make sure that those products get the best visibility within Google search. And here are some of those examples of the rich results I was talking about. So I think the bottom right is kind of a jobs example, but again, all different types of queries. Google's looking for content that helps them understand that so they can display that more uniquely within those search results. So events, jobs, you name it, reviews, a lot of different products, as I called out. But all of these, as you provide those to Google, will give you that better visibility within there, and you can understand through those testing tools what's driving the value there. And then what does that structured data look like? So this is just kind of a technical view within some of those tools I mentioned from Google to test that, look at the code, understand what it looks like, but then it will show how they're going to display it. So again, get into Google Search Console, understand what it is they're leveraging and why, and so that you can troubleshoot that using some of the plugins and tools we've been talking about. So digging into more of SEO with WordPress. So again, you've really got to focus on the plugin side, on probably a handful of these to optimize technical, which Yoast does a great job of. It also does a great job of managing content and recommendations. So you've got that, but then there are other tools like we've called out, such as SEMrush or Ahrefs, that are great to use. But again, Google Search Console being kind of a primary tool that you'll need to use. So what I would suggest is kind of using all of these. Again, there's free versions and then there's kind of upgraded options. But a lot of these will really help you to decide what's needed on your end to optimize your content, to have that technical piece solved for, to drive the best SEO value within what you're doing on WordPress. So there's tons out there, but really you're just going to need a couple, and then the others like Smush, I've called out on the speed optimization as well. So the key focus is make sure you're optimizing that navigation, make it easy for people to find things in your website, get to it. If you can't get to something in a single click and you've buried it behind 2 or 3, that's a problem. So you want to make sure, again, think of that, like how can I get anywhere that's relevant to what they're looking at in one click, whether that's in your main navigation within the content itself, or other ways. Also, that image optimization, we talked about Smush and some of these other tools. Make sure the images are high quality, but also speed and size optimized, and that's really easy to do through some of those tools. But one of the other things you've got to make sure you do on the image side is the use of alt text. So what alt text is, it's a field inside of WordPress that when you upload an image, you can say, this is what the content is about. So this is an image of XYZ product or XYZ service person in the field. Those keywords describe that content and allow you to rank better in image search, which is also something you'll see more prevalent within search results. When you do a search, you'll see a lot of images returned. And so that's how you're optimizing those images to those queries as well. So you want to make sure and use that alt text any place you're using images within your content. And then kind of back to the link or URL structure. Every piece of content you create is going to use a keyword rich permalink, is what it's called in reality. But again, make sure it's clean. People are going to see this in your browser bar up there. It needs to make sense. Don't use letters and numbers, random things. It should be the title of what you're talking about, aligned with those keywords you're going after, to make sure it's really easy for these people to kind of, again, understand what is the topic of this page and why should I be looking at it. And the sitemap automation, again, that's tied in with the tools, so should be easy for you to handle. So backlinks, we've talked about the off-page portion. Why does this matter? when Google crawls, they're looking at how many sites talk about another site and kind of vote for it. And the more votes you have from other sites, the more likely you are to be higher ranking. So you really want to look for these link strategies and methods of driving links to your site in order to kind of get the value of that and increase those links back to your site, which will help you rank better in search. So there's a lot of ways to do this. You can create shareable content. Um, Different things like, again, joining local organizations and having them talk about you. Um, and I'll kind of highlight here what that looks like. So are there forums in your space? Are there Q&A sites like Quora? Social media sites, Facebook has a lot of communities talking about different things and being relevant in those and sharing your URL where relevant is a great way to leverage social media. There's other directories out there on the SEO side. You've got your Yelps and your Trustpilots and different review sites, and you want to make sure you're present on those so that those link back to you and can talk about you. But you also don't want to just go out and buy links. There's services you'll be spammed with once you register your business offering to buy links. You don't want to do that. You just want to engage in natural link earning through the methods we're talking about here in order to drive the best outcomes for your business and not get in any trouble with Google. So I mentioned reviews, but I really want to spend some time highlighting how important this is, especially for local businesses. And with Google My Business, you'll want to be in that. You'll want to be in Yelp. You'll want to be in Trustpilot. These businesses called out here. But ultimately, the more positive rankings or reviews you're getting from your customers on an ongoing basis, the better you're going to rank inside of those map results and other results inside of these different search engines. So you want to leverage these, and you want to encourage your customers to go leave reviews. Build that into your email marketing. Build that into your retail store signage, whatever it may be. Reviews are a lifeblood for local SEO performance, as well as non-local. Again, just in the B2B or SaaS space, you want your customers talking about you so that others can understand why they would choose you. And those reviews ultimately drive a lot of SEO success. So it's worth every bit of time you can do into generating reviews from your customers, as that will then translate into SEO results for you. And the primary one that is going to drive the most value is Google My Business. It's a free profile you can set up there, but that's what drives the maps results that you see when someone's searching maps, but also those maps listings that show inside of typical search results as well. And you're not going to have visibility there without setting this up in Google My Business. And then again, the reviews being the key part of driving your visibility. The higher quantity of reviews and higher ratings of reviews are ultimately going to be what drives your rankings there. So it's definitely an area you want to focus on as much as you can, and can't overemphasize the value of that. So you've done all these things. How do you kind of monitor it and keep an eye on it and make sure you're doing great? So Google Search Console, I'll go back to that. That's another tool, again, you have to have. It allows you to understand what the search terms are you're ranking for, how many clicks you're getting, how many people are searching for those. So it's a great place to understand just kind of what your keyword rankings are and how visible you are. And then a tool like Google Analytics to see, okay, what are the pages that people are clicking from others? How long are they staying on pages? How can you measure that audience engagement? A free tool like Google Analytics is going to help you to understand that. And those can all be kind of linked back in your WordPress so that you can see all of that in a single dashboard kind of right in front of you. And it's a great way to just keep a pulse on how people are using your site. And then, as you get used to that data, you just want to start to identify areas of opportunities where, the pages that maybe aren't performing where you think they should be, or people that are bouncing more than they should be. And how can you reconfigure that content and kind of re-optimize it to be the best version of itself to then drive more value? Because it's not a set it and forget it. You definitely want to continue to optimize your pages. The ones that are performing well, how can you get more? But the ones that aren't, really understanding what you can do. And again, looking back at that competitor analysis, kind of compare what you're writing or what they're writing, and learning from what you can discover there. And then again, just make sure you're looking for those issues. What things are popping up? How many reviews you're getting? Just this whole process, you really need to keep a pulse on it. As I mentioned before, it is not a set it and forget it. It is an always on process of kind of watching what's happening and making sure you're optimizing that going forward. So you definitely want to drive that continuous improvement throughout the process. So then final chapter here for us. So what else do we need to know? How do things change and how do I adapt? So Google is always undergoing algorithm changes, and there's ways to stay, on top of that. They have a whole area where they will tell you anytime a Google algorithm update is rolling out and kind of explain what it is. Is this a reviews focused algorithm update? Is it a spam focused algorithm update? Is it what they call a core update? And they have a lot of documentation on how to do the best based on those. So at a high level, you don't really need to understand the algorithm, but you need to understand the recommendations Google has on writing expert content, authoritative content, trustworthy content, and just doing all the right things. And again, you can go to the Google Search Console blog, and they'll have a lot of this information for you to identify. And as those algorithms roll out, you can use things like Search Console to kind of keep an eye on what's happening there. But there's a lot of publications out there, Search Engine World, Search Engine Land, Search Engine Roundtable, so look at these sites and understand kind of what's happening and keep a pulse on that. Sign up for their email news list. It's a good way just to kind of learn search and keep a pulse as to what's changing. And then as things change, embrace the new technologies. We've seen the shift to mobile we've talked about. Voice search is a new thing. We're seeing a lot with the AI tools and large language models like ChatGPT and others. So it's good to just, stay on top of those technologies and embrace them. I referenced ChatGPT as a great way to do keyword research, for example. But also these tools are a place that people are discovering you. So you want to understand, how are people searching there and what visibility do you have? So you just always want to make sure you're embracing these new technologies and kind of thinking about what's coming and how that may change the search landscape for you. And one of those big changes over the last year has been the rise of community platforms. As you Google anything, you're going to see Reddit and Quora quite a bit. So we just encourage you to make sure you're active there and understanding what are the things that are ranking in search in those areas, and then how can you be a part of that conversation to promote your business. You don't want to be spammy, but you need to be a natural part of those conversations. And so it's important to understand how those community works and how you can be a part of those conversations to build those backlinks, that authority we've talked about. And that's an always on community as well. So you want to monitor what people are talking about or the challenges they're facing. It can also inform product decisions on your end or services and how you see what the market's talking about, maybe how you can better serve those markets. So definitely want to be apprised of the communities and understand how best to participate there. So, kind of as a reminder, it's a game of hide and seek, but we always want Google to find us first. And the higher we rank, the better we're going to do at the end of the day. So there's, a lot to do here. I think hopefully this presentation has helped you in that process to understand the basics. But again, if you get stuck, refer to places like Search Central, WordPress support, all of the tools we've talked about, the communities we're talking about. They have communities for SEO as well. But just get your hands wet, do it, learn it, look at your data, listen to others, and continually work to improve everything. And I think as you go along, you'll continue to see improvements in what you're doing on the SEO side. And if you don't have time for this and it's all too much after you go through that process, there's a lot of professional effort SEO services out there. You'll want to go with a reputable source and make sure you're getting the value out of it. But definitely, look at outsourcing this to someone that can really make it easy for you and take that weight off for you. Awesome. Well, I looks like I've gotten through it, and hopefully I've provided a lot of value. But I want to open it back up to see, Devin, if we have any questions.
Awesome, Mark. Thank you so much. That was incredible. Very informative. Great overview of SEO and how to improve on it. We did get a handful of questions. I tried to respond to some of them, but we still have a couple left over. So let me pull those up and kind of go through those. First one I have for you is, how long does it take to see the results from SEO efforts?
Yeah, great question. So short answer is it depends. If you're a brand new business starting out, it can take 3-6 months, sometimes up to a year. But the way you speed that up is by doing everything in here. Especially for new businesses, the building reviews and building links is really going to speed that up. But once you've got an established presence, sometimes those changes can be immediate. If you go and optimize a piece of content, As soon as Google crawls that in a day or a week, you could see new rankings for that. So it kind of depends, but hopefully that sets a ground for kind of understanding each piece of that. So some of it's instantaneous, some of it's going to take more and more time. But again, it's an always on process. Keep working through it, and you'll continue to see improvements.
Awesome. Yeah, and I agree. I think that's where some of the technical stuff comes in. You can submit your site to be crawled by Google and try to accelerate some of those tasks a little bit here and there. But um, the next question I have is, how do I use an SEO plugin? They mentioned that you were talking about Yoast SEO a little bit to improve my website.
Yeah, so definitely would encourage everyone to get into the communities. Yoast, like all these others, have great communities and trainings and videos, like we talked about, to learn things. But the other benefit is a lot of these tools have that kind of baked inside of the WordPress, and they're going to guide you through that process. So I think at a high level, follow that guidance, do exactly what they're telling you, and it should make it really easy. But as you kind of advance or want to get more nitty gritty, definitely worth getting into these communities, getting on the YouTube channel for some of these, and really going through and understanding how to derive the most value out of it. But again, at a high level, these tools are there to make it easy. So use the easy aspect of the way they're going to guide you natively within the WordPress interface.
Yeah, and I know specifically Yoast recently came out with like an AI assistant where you can start writing your article or your blog post or your page, and it will come in and say like, hey, maybe think about tweaking this title or make sure that you're adding these other elements to it to improve your SEO. So it is kind of nice to have that dynamic feedback, that kind of live reaction, so to speak.
Exactly, and they're looking at the keyword usage. They're recommending how to write a better title tag and description tag based on the keywords you're targeting. So you're right, and again, that's all right there in the interface, and it's in your face to remind you. Here's a way you could possibly do this better if you want to. So yeah, completely agree. Love the
Yeah,
new tooling and the way AI has further enabled that.
yeah. Next question I have is, what are some tips for writing blog posts that rank well on Google?
Yeah, so I think at the highest level is make sure it's engaging to your audience, but it solves a problem. But also kind of think, get creative. What's going to be fun? What's going to be engaging? If you're a local business targeting a certain geographic area and there's events in that area, there's a marathon or a festival, you can kind of venture outside of your product and service zone to talk about that thing because you may be relevant to the audience or want to get your brand out in front of them. So I think get creative, but also be engaging. And then leverage these tools we've talked about, or ChatGPT, to figure out ways to get that emotional hook with your audience. Because boring content's not going to work. You've really got to have something that engages. And so I think that psychological connection, but also just really making sure that you're solving the needs of the people with your content at the end of the day is really what you're after.
Yeah, and I feel like I remember a time when SEO used to have a bunch of like these little tricks, like if there was a word you wanted to rank for, you could put it in white text as the background and just copy paste it so as 1,000 times. And Google would say, like, oh, this page must be super relevant because they mentioned that keyword 1,000 times. But Google's gotten a lot smarter over the years. And so now I agree with what you're saying. Like the best tip you can give is just to write something that will answer the question that people are looking for, right? When people go to a Google or a Bing or wherever, they're looking to have a question answered. And if they land on your page for that answer and they can find that answer and they spend more time on your page, then Google sees that and will reward it and increase your spot on the results page. Excuse me.
Totally.
Next question is a technical question. They ask, do I need to know coding or HTML to improve my website's SEO?
Yeah, so this is, we mentioned AI and I think just the world in which we live in and also some of the pluses of what WordPress provides. The short answer is no. I think a lot of the plugins and things you can do don't need that level of expertise. I think as you grow and things become more complicated, of course things can change and you might need more of that. But myself, I'm not really a coder. And when there may be an instance to understand, what the code means or something like that, I'll go dump that in Chat GPT, and it's kind of my new trusty buddy alongside of me to solve those problems. So I think with advancements like that in AI, where you really don't have to know as much, are making it so it's less and less important to um, no HTML or no coding or some of these things when you can have that trusty assistant by your side, or great plugins and things within WordPress that just solve it for you or guide you through that process natively in the interface there.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. We have about 5 or 6 minutes left. We have a few more questions I'd like to get through, but I just want to advance this slide to a few more resources. If you have questions, if you'd like to get a little bit more assistance, then we have a couple helplines that we want to offer to everyone that's attending today. So don't hesitate to take a screenshot or to refer back to this in the recording at a later date. But a few more questions I want to get to before we run out of time. One is, can duplicate content from my website hurt my SEO?
Yeah, I think in short it can, but in a perfect world you shouldn't have that, and that's where some of these tools can help identify that for you, and you can get that cleaned up. But you shouldn't have same versions of the page. Some of the tricks, like you were talking about earlier, maybe I'm a plumber that has multiple locations, and I write that same piece of content for different locations, and I'm just changing the city name. That's not really unique content. You need to customize that to each location to make it unique, because that's an example of where that's kind of duplicate content, and Google has confusion as to what to rank and may not rank any of them. Or give all the authority to one of those pages. So that's an example of where you do need to make sure you're not too duplicate and things are unique.
And this is my own thought, not their question, but my assumption would be the same is true if you were doing like guest posting, because I know a lot of people will say like, "Hey, I want to write a guest post on your blog and then backlink to my website if that's okay." I'm assuming that's the same if you guest post on 4 or 5 different blogs. You want to make sure that it's unique content on all on each post, essentially.
100%, because again, the value comes from each of those being unique and Google having the opportunity to recognize those unique and rank them independently. Otherwise, they could see them as the same, bring that authority into one, and you don't know which one they're going to choose, and it could hurt the effort and what you're trying to do with that guest post. So, yep, completely agree.
Awesome. A few more questions. One person just said that they're feeling a little overwhelmed with all of the website building tools and things that go into that. So they're asking if you have any suggestions on how to prioritize SEO versus other marketing strategies like social media or PPC campaigns.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, search is large. People do it, so it's got to be a mix. And social media, same thing. People are using it, and that's back to the data piece. Understanding, looking at your data to see what's working and what's not working, and leaning into those areas based on those results. Um, and I think that's true for any business. Everyone's going to see different results. There's no answer. But yes, the more channels you have, the better. But you need to measure them to understand how they work. Same if you go into paid channels. You're going to buy a bunch of traffic. You need to make sure it converts, because maybe paid isn't for you, and you can turn that off as a channel. So make sure you've got those analytics tools in there, and you're keeping a pulse. But definitely test everything. Test all the channels and see where they fit in your priorities.
Yeah, I think that's incredible advice. And I know when I've had these conversations at other times, I've kind of broken it down into paid and free um, kind of strategies where SEO, like you can do a lot of that for free by downloading a free plugin or writing a blog article. Whereas once you start getting into like PPC, obviously, which is pay per click, which is it's in the name, it's a paid strategy, and sometimes with social media, there's money that's involved in with that as well. So I think you nailed it. Test them all, figure out which maps to your audience best and fits your business strategy best.
Completely.
Um, okay, let's see. Another question here is, should I prioritize blog posts, product pages, or landing pages for SEO?
Yeah, short answer is all of those. You're gonna get the best return out of your product pages for sure, because again, that is where the intent's gonna, from a commercial standpoint, match the most, and you're gonna see more conversions and more revenue. But all of it plays together. So at the end of the day, you do need to do it, and that comes back to what I said previously. See what converts, look at your data, but product pages are probably going to be your most important up front. But then you definitely want to support that with the other content as well.
Awesome. Potentially last question, maybe one or two more. Do you have any other common mistakes that beginners make with SEO and any suggestions on how to avoid them?
Yeah, I think you call that an example of the hidden text, or people writing keywords and just making things unnatural, thinking that's going to boost their SEO. I think people get a lot of advice from years past along those lines that um, should be ignored. So again, just do what's best for the user, and at the end of the day, you should be in a good place. And again, don't overthink it. Test and learn. Continue to invest in it and monitor your results. Um, Trying to think of any other mistakes. Oh, rely on those plugins. Sometimes you may not actually publish your changes to be crawled by search engines and in your WordPress settings, and so it's a one-click error that may be preventing traffic. But a lot of those tools like Yoast will help point those out to you and get those solved pretty easily.
Awesome. And the last question, I know you touched on this a little bit, so this just might be a little bit of a recap. Someone had just asked, you mentioned ChatGPT and some AI assistants, and they're just asking how that's changing search in the future.
Yeah, I think definitely we see a lot of usage. People are using it. I called it out. I'm using myself to solve problems and get answers. So it's important to kind of keep an eye on that shift. I'd say Google today still is the dominant search engine, but it's good to be familiar with these tools and do queries as you would as though you're your audience, to see how do you show up or what does that look like. But at the end of the day, the nature of information retrieval and how search works is kind of the same foundation of how these large language models work. So if you're optimizing for search engines at the end of the day and doing everything we've talked about, you're also optimizing for these large language models and how you're going to show up there too. So I think a lot of the same practices still apply. It's just a different interacting mechanism for the user on how they're going to get to that. And you may not see as many link clicks, but again, if you can get yourself exposed there in the same ways you're doing with search, long term, you'll see the benefits for sure.
Awesome. Well, I believe that's everything, and we are right at the top of the hour, so we're right on time. Mark, thank you so much for stopping by, for taking the time to share your expertise and your experience with us. Very informative for me. I'm sure it helped a lot of the people in the audience as well. So thank you so much. And for everyone that participated and asked questions and gave comments, we greatly appreciate your engagement and your participation. We want this to be helpful for you. We want to position Bluehost as a partner in your website building process. So anything we can do to help along those lines, we're here for that, and we want to see you succeed online as well. So thanks again, Mark, and thanks everyone for tuning in. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.